you said you haven't seen enough of Anthony Richardson. You've seen a lot of a guy like Stetson Bennett, yet you don't know what the heck to do with him. He is a huge question mark when it comes to what his market's going to look like in the NFL, how you evaluate him. He has all the intangibles. He has the leadership quality. He has the national championships. And yet, what is Stetson Bennett in the NFL? Ryan, you mentioned the Brock Purdy comparison, I think a lot, not to Stetson Bennett, but just in general, of a guy that can fit so well in a system like what Kyle Shanahan has created for him. Do you see if there is a situation similar to what we saw from Brock Purdy, if there is a situation like that for Stetson Bennett? Here's a great graphic comparing the two of them. Do you see Stetson Bennett having a Brock Purdy-like year in an NFL system?
Yeah, this is pretty easy. All that has to happen is that the 49ers need to draft Stetson Bennett, and he will be fine. Because that feels like best-case scenario. You're getting the best play caller on planet Earth in Kyle Shanahan. You're getting all those weapons around you, and you get the benefit of playing on a great defense. It sounds a lot like playing at Georgia, right? But Stetson Bennett's 25 years old. We all know the stats. He's been around forever. He's the same size as Bryce Young. The difference is athletically he doesn't do the same things Bryce Young does. But he's a good athlete. He can run with the football. Brock Purdy's bigger, has a better arm. Probably just as athletic, maybe doesn't run quite as well as Stetson Bennett, but it's close. So I think there's a situation where Stetson probably gets drafted late on day 3 in the 7th round. He's going to be a leader from Jump Street. He's incredibly smart. He'll know the offense. He can run the scout team for you. And if there's a situation where he needs to be forced into action, and you see it every year in the NFL where second-team quarterbacks, sometimes third-team quarterbacks have to take the field, play for a game, maybe 3 or 4 games. If Taylor Heineke can have success in the NFL, and a lot of credit to him for what he's able to accomplish, certainly Stetson Bennett can have that type of role. But he's not a guy you're drafting in the 2nd or 3rd round with the expectation that he'll be a starter in 2 or 3 years. That's just not his game. That's just not where he's at. But I think there's a place on an NFL roster for Stetson Bennett who can do a lot of things from the cerebral side to helping your teammates prepare to break in case of emergency, put him out there, and he can potentially keep you in a ball game and help you win 2 or 3 or 4 games while your starter gets healthy.
Ryan, is he drafted? Real quick.
Yeah, I think he goes late 7th. Goes in the 7th, late into the day 3. I think there's an opportunity for him to get drafted there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if Tyler Huntley, Skylar Thompson, and Brock Purdy can start playoff games in the NFL, I think Stetson Bennett has a place in the NFL. This guy is the most slept-on guy in the history of college football. He's a very good player. Do I see him being a future NFL Hall of Famer? Probably not, but there's a place for him on an NFL team. You see it every year with multiple injuries. A guy like him can come in if he's in the right system. When you think of those 3 teams, the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the 49ers, what are we thinking? They're all very good teams. They all have good talent around them, and so Stetson Bennett's going to obviously need some of that to succeed, just like any quarterback does. But I think there's a place for him. I think he's a capable player, and I think that he's going to have a very long NFL future as a backup quarterback, a guy that can come in when he's needed and can come in and move the chains and win games for teams.
The key to Stetson Bennett's career is going to be how is the team that he goes to built. Every team does not build through a franchise quarterback. We can remember the Baltimore Ravens winning the championship with Trent Dilfer, and he won't win any quarterback contest now. So I think the thing for Stetson Bennett, can you go to an organization that's built around defense, the run game, and the quarterback not losing you the game? There is a home for Stetson Bennett somewhere in the National Football League, depending on how the team is constructed. Now, if he can end up in one of those teams that runs an open system, and he'll get an opportunity to throw the ball around a little bit, I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for him, but we will see.
I'm excited to see, what becomes of Stetson Bennett. I feel like immediately after he won this 2nd national championship, it was like, all right, here's where the Cinderella story ends. He's not looking like an NFL quarterback, that sort of thing. But Ryan, you've seen this so many times, I'm sure, with covering the draft and seeing, it's a copycat league, right? Is that always referred to in the NFL? And when you see what happens with a Brock Purdy, that's definitely going to have a trickle-down effect. But especially with Tom Brady, and that he was such a late draft pick so many times, these NFL franchises will look at it and say, let's just take a flyer on a guy later in a round. Let's see what happens. But when you, quote-unquote, take a flyer, what are some of the most important attributes and skills that you're looking for if you're just going to take a flyer on a guy in a later round?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things to keep in mind, Emily, and I learned this and have to remind myself each and every year, is that it is so incredibly hard to figure out who's going to be good as a quarterback, whether it's round one or whether it's the Mr. Irrelevant. I mean, if you put two quarterbacks next to each other, Brock Purdy and Zach Wilson, and say which one's the first round pick, no one's picking Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson went second overall. But what are you looking for when you draft a quarterback on day 3? First of all, you're looking for guys who's incredibly smart, who's incredibly hardworking, who's a great teammate, who understands what's being asked of him, even if it's not in terms of being a starter. Or you're looking for guys with physical tools that need just a little bit more development, and they didn't perhaps get that because they didn't play a lot. Matt Castle, for example, with the USC, he took a handful of snaps throughout his career because he's behind Carson Palmer, and he ended up going in the 7th round and had a relatively long career. So those are usually the two baskets that those people fall into. Athleticism, but short on experience, or guys who are incredibly smart, cerebral players, who in Stetson Bennett's case also has a little athleticism and a ton of experience, and who can make plays for you. Because at the end of the day, if you had all those things, you would be in the first round conversation. Didn't happen that way, so you fall to day 2, more likely day 3, and I think that's the case. And I think Blake made an important point about Stetson Bennett. He is being slept on. Again, if he were like Bryce Young in terms of being 6'2" and 220, we'd be having a different conversation right now. Unfortunately, he's not. Age is actually less of a concern for the quarterback position. He's not playing running back or defensive back. But at the end of the day, when you're 5'11"-ish, 185, 190, playing quarterback, you have to do everything at such a high level to overcome those things. And that's where you see the disparity between a Bryce Young, for example, and a Stetson Bennett.
He is a good athlete, though. I mean, Stetson Bennett can run. He can make people miss. I mean, you've seen it over and over again the last 2 seasons. I mean, I look at it this way: if Anthony Richardson had been the quarterback at Georgia, there's no way they would have won a national championship this year. You have to look at this guy is a winner. He understands how to move the chains. He understands the offense. He's a good processor. He's a good athlete. So there's a place for him. And I look forward to seeing where he ends up, because I think he's going to have a long, successful NFL career as a backup. And when he gets an opportunity to go in the games, if somebody gets hurt, he's going to make the most of it.
Carl, do you agree with that? If Anthony Richardson was the quarterback at Georgia, they would not have won college football national championship?
I think this brings up, I don't think that Stetson Bennett is going to be the reason you lose a football game. I do think if Anthony Richardson is at Georgia, he's going to take some chances that Stetson Bennett is not going to take. When I come back to the NFL evaluation, though, I would say the same thing about Stetson Bennett from an NFL standpoint that I would say about Anthony Richardson. Does he have the ability to consistently make passes from the pocket in the National Football League? And I think that's the biggest question that has to be answered. And I don't know that either quarterback consistently does that enough for them to be quality starters in the NFL.
Yeah, and Carl, when we look at, these quarterbacks that are leaving for the NFL, we look at the holes that they leave behind, right? And you go, oh my gosh, what is Ohio State going to do without C.J. Stroud? Or, what is Alabama going to do without Bryce Young? The common theme, though, is that we feel like Georgia's going to be okay beyond Stetson Bennett. I mean, what kind of hole does he leave behind?
He leaves behind a huge hole because something that we know is important, but we don't talk about it enough in football and sports, is leadership ability. And one thing that you have to say on Stetson Bennett's behalf, being a walk-on, being a guy that had to beat out 5-star guys to lead the kind of team that has the kind of alphas that they have on that Georgia defense, Georgia offense, some of the players he played with, he earned their trust. He did something in that locker room, something in that football complex that made everybody in the building trust that he was the guy to lead them. And he came away with 2 national championships. And that leadership is something that's not going to come up on a 40-yard dash. It's not going to come up on the measuring tape. But his ability to have elite leadership cannot be discounted in his pursuit for a professional football career.
Yeah, it's a big unknown, but Georgia's going to be fine. I'm assuming Carson Beck will be the starter going into next season. But it's a huge unknown on exactly what he can do. He's a very highly rated, highly touted player that's got a few reps here and there. But it's going to be the limelight's going to be a lot different on him. The pressure's going to be different with him, especially trying to three-peat. But there's a lot of talent around him. As long as they keep Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, I think that he'll be put in a position of success. But like Carl mentioned, I mean, Stetson Bennett has been there, done it, proven it, started from the bottom, and all he did was win football games at Georgia.
And Georgia also bringing in some elite wide receiver talent in the transfer portal, so we will see what they do next season. Guys, again, today is just the deadline to declare. There could be more names that enter in the next couple of hours. Midnight Eastern time is the official cutoff, but what I will tell you is that we have a long offseason to talk about this. We have a lot of time between now and the draft, which means Ryan Wilson, we will have you back on to talk more about it, because as you know, when the combine and pro days and everything happens, so much will change, and we are excited to download all of it. Ryan, thank you so much. Blake, thank you. Carl, thank you. As a reminder, we are here every Monday and Wednesday at 5 o'clock Eastern. If you don't want to miss a moment, be sure to subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. Enjoy your night, and we'll see you back here Wednesday.